Hey everybody, hope you guys are enjoying these episodes. I'm enjoying it. It's fun for me to reminisce, but I tell you, this is tough. I usually do the interviewing and interaction because I'm such a historian in the monster truck world that it's easier to talk to somebody else about their story. I get more excited sometimes about their story and hearing the little ins and outs than my own story, this is a little bit tough for me because I'm having to try to reminisce and keep it entertaining for you guys without somebody asking me questions. But if you guys can, ask me questions. Send some questions in. I always like hearing from all you guys, all you fans out there. So basically we started building War Wagon 2. The last episode I was telling you a little bit about it. I think a couple episodes I was talking about how we went from the 20-inch shocks to the 30s right away. Now, some of the pictures you're going to probably see, it might have still had the spring or the shock hoops with the 20s, because I don't know that I ever took any pictures. You know, back then we didn't think about saving history, so we took some pictures, but most of the time it was just to show progress. Like if you were going to go to a car show or go to a family get together, you know, people always want to know what you're doing. Well, nowadays everybody pulls out their cell phones and, you know, you show everybody. But back in those days, you know, you had to really pre-plan. There was none of this quick, candid picture stuff. I mean, really, it's hard to even find early video footage of stuff because we didn't do that back then. It's hard to even imagine going back 20-some years ago because we're so spoiled now with technology. So basically, some of the build pictures, they might not be quite in order. I might have changed stuff, you know, as I was building it, because I built it basically in about a year and a half's time whenever I had time to work on it. But we got it finished. The first show, it was in '97. I was in, I think, Springfield, Connecticut for Aaron Paulburn, the Thunder Nationals. And, you know, everybody was a little nervous with a brand new truck out of the box. You know, in the past, a lot of these new style 4-link trucks and suspension trucks, there was a lot of learning curve with a lot of them, so everybody was real nervous. Aaron gave me a real good schedule, but I didn't have every weekend booked, so some of my weekends were supposed to be filled with the big conglomerate, they actually, it's kind of funny because my first weekend with them would have been a couple weeks after that Springfield, Massachusetts, or Springfield, Connecticut, I think it was, but I was supposed to be a couple weeks after that in St. Louis, Missouri, and they actually canceled me out in December. They said, nah, we don't want to use you this year because with your new truck, it's probably not going to be reliable. We don't want to be the place you're learning how to make your truck work. It's very frustrating because in '97 in St. Louis, Missouri, they brought out that new green wrecking machine. Everybody knows what that one is, with the big name guy that driving it, and that was his debut with that. Well, I would have been debuting the new War Wagon right there with that green wrecking machine, and it was longer, and everybody bragged about how good that truck was going to be, and I remember seeing footage of him with that truck there, and he didn't even really do much. He was turning a corner or something, and the front spindle broke off, and the front wheel came off, and it's like, daggone it, if I'd have been there, you know, War Wagon worked great right out of the box. I think we only had a couple little things that we had to fix. The first show, I think one of the sway bar arms cracked, one of the drag link arms cracked or something. It didn't completely break off. I had to use the welder at the arena and weld that up, and other than that, the truck worked great. I ran it the whole first quarter. Everybody was amazed at how good that truck worked, and I loved how good it rode. I had 30 inches of travel all the way around on it. That truck was very, I think, ahead of its time the way I designed it. It was probably one of the first trucks in the industry to be able to take a transmission in and out of it through the side of the frame. I had it designed where everything was quick connects, quick couples. The drive shaft, intermediate drive shaft loop was basically a two-piece cage, and I was able to unpin it with pins and take it, you know, half of it out, throw it on the ground. The intermediate shaft with basically two U-bolts on it I was able to take out, and that would slide out and throw on the ground. You could change the transmission by yourself in 15 minutes time without any problem. The biggest struggle was the weight of the transmission. I'm not that big of a guy. Did a lot of traveling by myself, so I would have to maybe get a crew guy from one of the other teams or something to help to set the transmission on the ground and grab the fresh one and put it in. But I had quick connect couplers on the hoses. Everything was designed on that truck to be efficient, quick to work on, easy to work on. I had all the 4-link bars and the tie rods were all exactly the same length on the truck. So all I had to do is carry a couple spares and everything would interchange. With 30-inch shocks in the front and the back, all I had to do is carry parts for a 30-inch shock. So if I bent a shaft or anything, which I did one time in a crash, wiped out some shocks, but for the most part, that truck was bulletproof. The chassis was way heavy duty. I built it all out of square and rectangular tubing. At the time, everybody was doing the round tubing, and even today, sometimes in the cradles and stuff, I don't feel like they're strong enough. You know, you'll see a cradle completely ripped out from underneath of a chassis, and with running the Thunder Nationals on the concrete with fresh big Impalas and Cadillacs and Lincolns, when we're hitting them babies as hard as we hit them, you know, I wanted something pretty rigid. When I built the axle housings, I made them super tough. Learned how to reinforce the Rockwell 250 steering knuckles, and that all worked really, really well. You know, the truck was the same front to rear, so the parts were pretty much all interchangeable. The rear, I ran a locker in the rear axle. I left an open diff in the front, but I ran a 106 axle in the center, which everybody did and still does. But I ran a 680 gear ratio in it, and I had a little bit different gearing. I had different ideas on things, and I think really the gearing helped because it made my axle shafts weaker than my transmissions with the way I had it geared. I also ran 2 transfer cases in that truck. Had 2 12-inch profabs in it, and I had the one centered in the chassis. The other one was up more in the front, and I used it basically as a reverser to get the transmission farther forward. The transmission actually set underneath the driver's seat, and it put the motor up farther forward. The chassis was only 24 inches wide. Most everybody ran a 34-inch wide frame rails, but by doing a 24-inch wide, it gave me enough room between the body and the frame to get the transmissions out. I also could take the motor out between the fender well and the frame. You could change a motor within about 3 hours without much work. I mean, it was really, when I was building it, I designed it to be easily worked on. And then the roll cage, I had a lot of cage in it. It was good that I did. I rolled that one over 3 or 4 times, and I think every time was on concrete, and it held up good. Hello, I'm Jeff Cook, owner and driver of the War Wagon monster truck. The War Wagon is a 1955 Chevy sedan delivery. It is powered by a big block Chevrolet with a blower and alcohol injection. The truck is in its transport mode right now with the little tires on it. When we get to a race, we put the big tires on it. The big tires are 66 inches tall, 43 inches wide, and they weigh 800 pounds apiece. Here we are inside the cockpit of the War Wagon. We don't have too many extras in here. We've got a custom-made seat just for racing, a 5-point harness that holds me in here. We've got a switch panel over here with just the switches we need, an onboard fire system in case of an emergency, and we've also got a remote control shutoff that is ran by a remote control. The track official has a remote, and in case we would get out of control or get injured or something, he can shut us off with that remote control. A lot of people wonder about the axles and suspension of the War Wagon. The suspension is a nitrogen gas-charged suspension. It has 30 inches of travel. The axles are a 106 Rockwell center section with payloader planetary knuckles on the ends. Those are all custom built in our shop. This is the hauler we haul the War Wagon in. It is an international semi with living quarters built in with a 40-foot enclosed trailer. Here I am with the old War Wagon, or at least what's left of it. We built this truck in '93 and ran it till the end of 1996. It had a leaf spring suspension with one nitrogen shock at each corner. This old girl was really good to me, and I've got some fond memories of it. Now I'd like you to enjoy some of the great memories that I have on this video. But hey, if you're enjoying these, hit the like button, subscribe, tell your friends, let us get more subscribers. You know, I think there's a lot of old school fans out there that would enjoy this content. And let us know what you're thinking, and we thank you for watching. 2, 3, 4. Hello, I'm Jeff Cook, owner and driver of the War Wagon monster truck. The War Wagon is a 1955 Chevy.
He was doing so good.
Now what? Running. Are you running?
Yes, go!
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we are inside the cockpit of the War Wagon. We've got a custom-made seat that's made just for racing. A 5-point harness that's 1, 2, 3. Here we are inside the cockpit of the War Wagon. We've got a custom-made seat just for racing. A 5-point harness that holds me in here.
Go.
1, 2, 3. Here we are inside the cockpit of the War Wagon. We've got a custom-made seat just for racing. A 5-point harness that holds me in here. We don't have too much extras in here. We only want just what we need. We've got a switch panel over here with just the switches we need. Some gauge. Take 1,530 something. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here we are inside the cockpit of the War Wagon. We don't have too many extras in here. We've got a custom-made seat just for racing, a 5-point harness that holds me in here.